Hello, Gene the OK Boomer here. Thanks for stopping by for today's vlog, which will be about events in Michigan, which is my home state, so I know it very well. I grew up there, haven't been there for 40 years, but I still keep up with events in Michigan. As far as elections go, especially presidential elections, you could really call Michigan these days a swing state because, well, it voted for Trump in 2016 and then switched to Biden in 2020. And it looks like, well, it doesn't look good for the Democrats, put it that way, in 2024, and perhaps even in 2022. I don't remember exactly when the next gubernatorial election is, but Whitmer, the governor there, she's a Democrat. She doesn't look to be doing too well over there. So it looks like we're going to have a Republican governor of Michigan, which also makes a big difference too. But I want to talk specifically today about unions, because if anybody is going to support Democrats, you would think it would be unions, not just in Michigan, but anywhere. But look at this headline: labor unions move towards the Republican Party in Michigan and more. For the first time ever, trade unions were invited to sponsor and speak at last week's Mackinac Republican Leadership Conference. That's Michigan's biennial bellwether GOP summit. Former U.S. Representative Pete Huckstra took the stage with representatives of both Operating Engineers 324 and Michigan Labor's District Council to discuss their shared values and the future of union-Republican collaboration. So not just cooperation, but collaboration. That means unions working with Republicans to elect Republicans. That is big news. That is big news from Michigan. As I said, that's my home state. I really can't overemphasize that. The OE 324 and MLDC together represent almost 30,000 construction workers in Michigan whose handiwork is considered the gold standard in construction, road building, and pipelines. Quote, right to work, pay attention to this, because Michigan was a strong union state, and it's now a right-to-work state. It's a right-to-work state, which normally would be anathema to unions for obvious reasons. But, quote, right to work and prevailing wage, that's behind us. We are about moving forward, unquote. OE 324 political director William Miller III told the Detroit News at Saturday's conference, quote, we are truly policy over party, unquote. Major news again. Is this what happens when Republicans make good on their claim as the party of the working class? Absolutely, and the evidence is increasing. Consider the proposal from Senator Josh Hawley, a Republican of Missouri, for a, quote, blue-collar bonus, unquote, or the Republicans trying to resuscitate the Keystone XL pipeline construction and thousands of good-paying American jobs that President Biden canceled on his first day in office. Let me just backtrack for a second there. The blue-collar bonus, what that is, that's kind of like an earned income credit, tax credit, but it's specifically targeted for blue-collar workers making low wages. I don't remember exactly what the threshold is, but the same thing. If they're not earning a certain amount of money, they can get a tax credit. They can get money back on their tax return. So it's obviously a big help for unions, especially for for blue-collar workers. Maybe they don't even have to be unionized, at least in Michigan, but still, for blue-collar, it's something that's good, that the unions obviously are happy about. And of course, the Keystone pipeline that Biden canceled, I think it was 10,000 jobs that were lost. These would be union jobs. They would be very high-paying union jobs. I remember seeing videos of now out-of-work pipeline builders, just unionized ones, just complaining or kvetching, as we say in Yiddish, kvetching about the lost jobs. So they are not too happy with the Democrats, and it creates this enormous opening for the Republicans. I would categorize that along with the police unions who are now, as far as I know, solidly in favor of Republicans, especially after all this defund the police nonsense and attacks on the police. I don't mean, well, there have been physical attacks too, but I'm talking about verbal attacks on the police by elected officials and Democratic operatives. So back to the article here. For professional trade unions in Michigan, Republicans aren't just one ally in Lansing. That's the capital of Michigan, Lansing, Michigan. They are the only ally in Lansing. Where Democrats once advocated for trade union values, they now choose activism over job creation time after time, which is this your Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders and socialism. I'm not going to get off on track, but that's the idea there. In Michigan, again, where I grew up, we called them, maybe it was in other parts of the country too, but we called them lunch pail Democrats. Solidly American. They would fly the American flag, very patriotic. And the unions, it was just to give them better wages. That's all, better wages and better working conditions. All this socialism stuff and critical race theory and yada, 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 on and on and on. That, to a blue-collar Democrat, it's bad. It's anathema to them. It's just total nonsense. And that has to be one reason why they are moving towards the Republicans. Or to put it another way, I had said in an earlier vlog that it's becoming less an issue of Democrats versus Republicans and more an issue of insane versus sane. The Democrats are going off the mental cliff more and more. They're just going crazy, while the Republicans are the sane party. If you value sanity, I guess the Republicans are becoming the go-to party, your only option. So here we go, back to the article. Where are we here? For an example, see the fight in Michigan over Enbridge Energy's Line 5. That's another pipeline. With no Enbridge Energy is a company, so they're Line 5. With no impetus except Green Deal activism against fossil fuels, Democrats started a court battle aimed at shutting down Line 5, the pipeline that transforms more than 500,000 barrels a day of oil and natural gas liquids through the Great Lakes region. Closure of the pipeline would kill tens of thousands of jobs, hurt farmers, remove a source of essential heat to thousands of Michigan families, diminish state tax revenue, and cut off crude oil supplied to refineries across the Midwest. But again, the Democrats that are so far left are fixated on this Green New Deal. They are just against, well, when Trump was president, we weren't on our knees begging Saudi Arabia to increase their oil production, which they refused to do, by the way. We were independent. We were oil independent, and we were actually a net exporter. Those days are gone, but also the workers, never mind being energy independent, all these jobs that somebody had to ship all that oil, drill it, send it through the pipelines, build the pipelines, and the Democrats are just working overtime to take that all away, especially if you're a union. The main concern would be the jobs. So Democrats show not only resistance regarding Line 5, but heartless cynicism. They offer no viable solution to the pipeline's closure and the enormous effect on human lives. Their disdain for rural life is palpable, which is another issue, which is I'm in Tennessee, and as I said, I grew up in Michigan. I lived in New York for a while, and I know that to New Yorkers, you've heard the term flyover country. They just have total disdain for the heartland of the country, in the Midwest. They are totally fixated. They're East Coasters and West Coasters, LA, California, and New York City, New York, because actually upstate New York is pretty conservative, but they're outvoted every time because the population is so heavily skewed towards one city, New York City. And so they are not too happy either. If they could secede and form a new state, upper New York, they would do it. But this is another thing that is sending average people, people from the heartland, to the Republicans because of this total disdain. They just think that, they think we're all hicks. That's basically it. They think we're hicks. Let me just get through this last paragraph here. Contrast this with trade union leaders on the GOP stage Saturday describing their apprenticeship and credential training programs popular among Michigan, quote, farm boys, unquote, who can work as union tradesmen during their off seasons to support their families. So I'm not a farmer, but you have your harvest season, and then in between harvest season, yeah, I guess there's a lot of free time, just like teachers being off for the summer. And well, that's what education used to be. That's why you have a summer vacation, because that's when the children were needed to help on the farm in the old days when we were mostly agricultural. So school had to close for a few months so that the kids could help the family out on the farm. But now it looks like that time can be used to to work in good union jobs, to work with trade union leaders, apprenticeship programs, so they can learn a new skill. Not only that, but if agriculture, if prices are low and the agricultural people are hurting, or let's say China stops buying our soybeans again or whatever, then there will be another option open for these other people, because the tool and die shops, the manufacturing jobs, those are going begging. Those companies are begging for workers. So any farm boy, I would imagine, quote unquote farm boy, could leave the farm anytime if it were necessary and just walk into one of these high paying jobs. So I'm just going to end on this, because you don't hear conservatives, well, now you do, being friendly with unions. So let me just give you my take on unions. I have nothing against unions. I have only a problem with unions when they try to force people to join them. If Michigan is now a right-to-work state, and that's really all I support, is right to work. And that doesn't mean getting rid of unions. It just means that the unions, just like the companies that they work for, they have to compete. If a union wants people to join the union, then they have to offer something that will make them want to join the union. Well, we've seen these votes, these union votes for Amazon, for instance, and the workers, well, in auto factories, even here in Tennessee where I am, where the unions try to unionize the workforce, and they can't. They get voted down every time. But the solution is simple: for the unions to offer something that makes it worthwhile for an employee to pay union dues. It's really just that simple. They should have to compete with just like everybody else, and if they win the competition, that's fine. That's all to the good. And then the people who employers who don't want unions, well, they're going to have to compete too, against the unions, and may the better party win. I don't mean the political party, I mean management versus unions and workers versus unions. But there's also another element I would throw in, which is unions. Why can't unions compete against other unions? So one union will offer whatever they offer for whatever the union dues would be, and why can't another union? Because it seems to be that it's like the mafia, that they divide up territories. I would have contracts, well, they're renewable anyhow, they have to be negotiated, but at that time where other unions could try to compete against the current union to get the members of that union, the current union, to join the new one. What's wrong with that? There is nothing wrong with competition. This whole country is built on competition. That's that's one of the things that made us great. That makes us better than, let's say, Europe, where they don't have nearly the economic growth that we do, and the amount of jobs available. And well, America is great, put it that way, and I'm just going to end on that note for today. America is great. This is a wonderful country, and you're all wonderful for spending some time with me. I really appreciate it. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions for future topics, you can put them in a space below the video. You could subscribe. I love getting new subscribers. You could share the video with anybody you think would also like the video. But most of all, come back and see me again. I would love to see all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.